Hi, this is your host, Marshall Baker. With us today, we have Mark Porter. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Marshall. Good to be here.
Excellent. A brief bio on Mark. Mark has been a pioneer in the e-learning real estate space, a successful real estate broker doing business as Castle Hills Real Estate, property management and portfolio owner, a CRS instructor, and multifamily investor. I'm hearing multiple revenue streams there, Mark, when I read that. So
Amen.
so maybe kick us off with a couple minute brief background on how you got started in the business.
Well, in my hometown, Janesville, Wisconsin, I was a service manager at a car dealership, and one night I was looking for inspiration as what to do next, and I was watching Carlton Sheets, How to Buy Houses, No Money Down, late night TV, and I plopped down my $100 and got the course, and I went out and bought my first rental property shortly thereafter. And as the buyer, I walked away at closing with $4,000 in my pocket. Much
Excellent.
to the amazement of the seller, basically the lending guidelines were slightly different before the issues with financing in the 80s or 90s, I should say. Yeah, I couldn't do that today. Financing more than the property is worth, or I should say more than it's appraised for. But back then, man, I did it. I got $4,000 in my pocket, and the rest is history. I just fell in love with real estate. I started buying and holding rental properties, and then I moved on from being a service manager at the car dealership to selling real estate in Janesville. We got 13 transactions closed my first year, and then 26 the second year, and doubled again the third year, the 52 transactions. And by then, I was enjoying it. I was good at it, and started to look at other marketplaces. My average sales price in Janesville was $64,000, and with a population about the same. And I got attracted to Dallas because the average sales price at that point was $250,000, and today well over $400,000. So I applied those principles up in Dallas or down in Dallas, and here I am today.
Excellent. I love it. So fast forward to today, you're in several real estate verticals between education, brokerage, property management, investing. How do you find time to do it all? You constantly hear you can be the jack of all trades and master of none, but it sounds like you've harnessed a way to really spread yourself across multiple verticals. How do you find time to wear all those multiple hats, and how do they fit together?
Well, they're a series of good hires, hiring great people and getting lucky that way, or staying on that path. The ability to delegate gives me the ability to run these multiple companies. One good hire can change your life. And combine that too with that you want to learn to delegate. For the longest time, I would chew through employees left and right because I knew how to do it faster. I could do it better, and I would micromanage, and I would just cause problems. The time at which I kind of gave in to delegation, where I allowed other people to grow to the ability that I had, then they far exceeded me. So the capabilities of my employees are far greater than mine, but I have the ability to kind of step out, work on the business instead of in it. Another way to look at it is, Stephen Covey talks about in his book, First Things First, that you have 7 compartments in the forefront of your mind. And if you cloud those with mundane tasks and trying to remember everything, and you never have a point of creativity. You never sharpen the saw. So if you can free your mind of all that, delegate all those other tasks, then you can work on your business instead of in it.
That makes a lot of sense. So to that point, walk us through a typical day for Mark Porter.
Boy, I wish there was a typical day. What makes up my day is a lot of different things. I would say probably counseling employees. Counseling other people and what to do, helping them make decisions. But I really try to keep those employees empowered. So you might see me step in most recently yesterday. the toilet's been leaking and it's rotted out the subfloor over a long period of time with a slight leak. Well, we had 3 different bids with 3 different solutions. So there's where I got to kind of step in and help Karen make that decision as to maybe what bid, just because, it's outside of her expertise. She doesn't have the years of repairing things like I have in my own rentals. And so I'm a consultant to my employees.
That makes sense. Very, very good. So I heard in your bio a CRS designation. Maybe tell us what that stands for and what's that all about?
Sure. Well, CRS stands for Certified Residential Specialist. It's the true designation for residential real estate sales. There's many designations out there, but CRS is the only one that actually requires you to keep up productivity and attend a certain amount of education. So you're a producer if you're a CRS. It's the top 3% of residential agents in the United States. Some of your audience might identify with CCIM. And actually CCIM is the sister company to CRS. CRS and CCIM are both subsidiaries of the National Association of Realtors. And they're a paramount designation in their own right. And I'm proud to be a CRS. And eventually that led me to be a CRS instructor, teaching other people how I do what I've done, and high-tech information about, basically what I do is I help real estate agents that are successful do better. I teach CRS classes.
Excellent. It sounds like the CRS designation really sets you apart from just your average Joe in the real estate training world, if I'm hearing you correctly. Like
a CCIM designation.
Excellent.
In the commercial world.
Yeah, very, very good. What would you say you like least and in contrast best about your profession?
What do I like least? I realized long ago that real estate isn't all about just people, relationships, houses. It can be a lot of work and a lot of trouble. You're solving issues for a living, and you're doing lead generation. You can work on the best presentation to list with me, but if I don't have any opportunities to give that presentation, I'm going to starve to death. So the toughest thing I think about real estate is lead generation, that I constantly have to create more business than I can handle and pick out the best and refer the rest to some other agent or some other entity for solutions. So lead generation, that's a tough part of real estate.
That makes sense. And, real estate's one of a career that looks easy from the outside. What would you say, what behavior is most attributed to your success?
Well, one of the poisons about real estate is it attracts people that don't want to have somebody breathing over their neck all the time and micromanaging them. They want freedom, and I want to go do what I want to do when I want to do it. So I'm going to get into real estate. Well, that very freedom is the very thing that crushes us. That gives you a lot of responsibility. And if you want to succeed, you almost have to have the mentality of being an employer to your career. And just because you have the freedom not to do it doesn't mean you can. You have to follow the basic principles or best practices of real estate sales before you earn the right to be creative and lazy.
Makes sense. Do you have a setback or failure that you feel like improved your career?
Well, probably one of the bigger setbacks, when I got out of my real estate or out of my auto business, I was born and raised a mechanic. Worked as a mechanic in my stepfather's garage before I could legally drive, and that change from the auto industry to real estate. At first, it was a setback, and I thought it was tough to get out of the automobile industry. But man, looking back, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm far exceeded the dreams I've had ever while I was a mechanic or a service manager at a Mercedes dealer. I'm way beyond that.
Excellent, excellent. What advice would you give to a motivated person about to enter the real estate field?
Well, that you've got to apply the principles of best practices before you've earned the right to be creative. in the same sense, bad advice is you have to work hard all the time. And I don't believe that. I think you do have to work hard and pay attention and be proactive, but eventually you get to a point where you want to work on your business instead of in it. So if I'm always in it, I'll never be on top of everything and it'll never go smoothly. My job is to make sure everything goes really good. And then, when somebody walks through that door and has a problem in hand, if they've worked with me before, they're my employees, they know I got two problems every time you give me a problem. I got the problem of today, this moment right now, and how do we cure that and come out of that issue? And then the second problem is I have a long-term issue. I don't ever want that to happen again. So how do we manipulate what we do or change our standard operating procedures so we don't have to deal with that problem again? It's never a problem to deal with a problem once. It's always a problem to deal with a problem twice or three times. There's just no excuse.
Excellent. Excellent. If you had it to do all over again, what career in real estate would you pursue?
Boy, I've loved teaching over the last 25 or so years. And I really enjoy just showing up and teaching people how to see the light. But multifamily, in the last 2.5, 3 years, I started shifting some of my single family investments or equity into multifamily investing. And I just really am starting to appreciate that, where a single family home, I invest in it and I get that call, or somebody here gets that call when there's a problem. But with my multifamily investments, I don't get calls like that. Yes. All I have to do is manage the manager, the property manager. And that's a whole different experience than managing somebody like a tenant that's personally involved. It's a blessing to be in multifamily investing, and I'm going to continue to change my focus from single family investing to multifamily.
Excellent. Excellent. That makes a lot of sense. And that's probably a whole nother podcast in itself beyond your day to day, but also the valuation piece. You're not really throttled on the comps.
Oh, yeah.
Your valuation is based more on the value you create in operating income in the multifamily space too. But we'll earmark that for a later podcast with you, Mark. So what is the best finance advice you believe you've heard over the years?
Oh, that's easy. Income buys assets. Assets create spendable income. Throughout life, as you trade time for money, you're going to get tired. Eventually, you don't want to trade time for money for the rest of your life, or it's just too much work. So when I heard the advice about income buys assets, assets create spendable income, it means when I get a lot more income, it doesn't mean I increase my standard of living. What it means is I'm not going to increase my standard of living until I have assets that produce that income. And that's what I can spend. I don't spend the money trading time for money. I spend the money from assets that are passive. So that way I don't have to work harder and harder.
Great insight, Mark. And it reminds me of a quote by the Oracle Warren Buffett. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you work until you die.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. Yes.
Excellent. So if people want to learn more about Mark Porter or Castle Hills Real Estate, how do they find you?
Well, I got two presence on the internet, markporterlive.com. That's my speaking and education business. And then Castle Hills Real Estate's our real estate company, where you can see resources related to property management and buying and selling single family homes and any type of real estate investing. And then you can just send me an email too, mark@castlehillsre.com. I'm usually really cool about being able to have a conversation or interact with you by email, and happy to do so.
Very, very good. Well, thank you for your candidness today, Mark. Our listeners and I thank you very much for your insights into the multiple commercial real estate businesses, and thank you for joining us.
Good to have you. Good to be here. Thanks, Marshall. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for listening to Commercial Real Estate Startup. To stay up to date with our new releases, subscribe to the podcast and join our email list at crestartup.com.